Times are uncertain and you're full of doubt. COVID runs rampant, so cover your mouth. You can't go outside, there's no easy way out, but there's a place you can go. Next to a train, no take cluster. Next to a train, no take cluster. Next to a train, go, go, go. Next to a train, no take cluster. Next to a train, no take cluster. Next to a train, no take cluster. Yeah!
Do you hear what I hear? Okay, so this is chapter 3. This is listening. First question I want you to think about. Do you as an individual desire to be heard, desire to be understood? Most of us do. I'd say that's a pretty common thing that you and I want. We want to be understood. We want to be heard. When we feel like we're understood, we value those relationships. If you have a friend or a family member who you feel really gets you, more than likely that's because they're a really good listener and they ask a lot of good questions. So listening is really important to us, and we like to be listened to, but often we don't listen well. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. I told you at the beginning of the semester, a lot of this class, the majority of this class and your other classes throughout your college career are full of listening. They really are. Like, you'll have presentations, but at the same time, you'll be doing a lot of listening and hoping to understand others and understand material. So let's talk about the HURIER model. HURIER, and I'll probably put something up here. I'll put that dog example that I really like, and you can kind of stare at that for a bit, but I want to talk about these 6 steps, okay? So the first H stands for hearing, and hearing is, think about the fact that you can't stop. If I do this on the table, unless you plug your ears, right? You can't stop yourself from hearing that, okay? It's the physical part of hearing. Of course, we can focus and listen selectively when we choose. We can zone people out, but still, there's those sounds going in our ears, maybe out the other ear, or in our ears, and that's the beginning of listening, is hearing. The fact that our ears work for us, they do a good job for us most of the time. The U, that's understanding. Okay, so we're focused on a message. We have that conscious intention to hopefully understand what somebody is saying or wanting to understand. All right, that's the U. The first R is remembering. Okay, and remembering, this step is, don't think necessarily in terms of memorizing something, because that's what you can think of when you hear the word remembering. But when we hear a message, or when I tell you something at the beginning or end of class and you've heard it before, your memory recalls, you remember that, and your mind will kind of start to fill in the blanks for you. And as we learn words, we remember them, and that makes communication easier. Okay, so in order to remember something, we have to commit the message to immediate memory, and then if it means a lot to us, we go over and over again and think about that message. That's remembering. The I is interpret. So you hear something, you want to understand it, you remember, you've heard these terms before, maybe you choose to commit it to memory, but you still need to interpret it, okay? So how does this message apply to me? Okay, based on what? What is this message based upon? Why does this matter? So you're trying to interpret maybe some words you don't understand, or the overall meaning of the message. And then the E in HURIER is evaluating. So this is when you critically examine a message and you think, what does the speaker want from me? So they're telling me all this stuff, but what do they really want from me? Are they asking me all these things because they want something out of me? Or are they genuinely interested in what I have to say? We do that. We evaluate why a speaker is talking to us. That's the E in HURIER. And then the second R, the final R, is responding. Okay, so at the end of listening, we always choose to respond. And that can be with or without words. That can be verbal, or we've talked about this, you're always communicating non-verbally. So even crossing your arms and leaning back and looking up while you're listening, generally that tells us that you are what? Disinterested. That's a typical evaluation of that. So you can respond with words, like when I ask a question in class, somebody raises their hand, I call on them. That's a verbal response. Or the rest of us who decide not to raise our hand but are still listening, we're watching that body language. All right, so that's responding, and that's the HURIER model. So hopefully this, I know this is a simplistic dog slide right here, but I like showing that because it's a very stripped down version and a clever way to think about the HURIER model. Okay, so now we're going to talk about barriers that affect our listening, because these are some things that like I said, we aren't the best listeners a lot of the time, and I want you all to get to that point where you are good listeners, because as you go throughout college and further classes, being a good and effective listener is really important. It's important for your teacher, it's important for your peers, your friends. So let's talk about these first 5 barriers, okay? And the first one is beliefs. Okay, the first barrier to effective listening is your own beliefs. And I don't know if we talked about this before, but there's this term called ethnocentrism. Okay, and if you've heard of that term, you may remember what it means. But essentially, ethnocentrism means that you think your way is the best way. Okay, so I am Muslim, and that means my worldview is correct and everyone else's worldview is wrong. Or I am Christian and everyone else is wrong. And if you aren't on my side, then that could mean bad news for you. Things like that, right? You think your worldview is superior and you can't get your head outside of that space where you imagine you could be wrong, where there is a way somehow maybe where you don't have everything figured out. So stepping out of those cultural beliefs, right, it's really challenging to do that, but it can help us listen more effectively and not just discount people who aren't like us. And that can be hard for us to do, because generally the more we think we know, then the better hold we feel like we have on life and we're in control, when in reality, and I think, you know, to be very current with you all, this whole COVID thing is just another example of the fact that humanity, we feel like we're in control, and then something like this happens where it kind of shows us and humbles us a bit that, okay, we can overcome this challenge, but we didn't expect this, and maybe we aren't in control of everything, just maybe. So that's beliefs. Second thing is values. So do your values align with the speaker? Okay? And if they do, you are more prone to listen to them because you agree with them. You think, oh, this is nice, this sounds good, because we like hearing what we believe, and we like that affirmation and knowing somebody agrees with us. Now, the opposite, if you inherently disagree with somebody, you're more prone to stop listening, to ignore them, to write them off, to think they're ignorant, stupid, what have you. Values also get in the way. Attitude. And you'll recognize these, right? These so far we're kind of following that onion that we talked about. So attitude. If you dislike a topic or a person that's speaking, okay, so you've made up your opinion about somebody, so maybe some of you think, okay, Mr. Woodring, he's long-winded, He's kind of annoying, and I don't really care for him much as a teacher. So now it's going to be harder for you for the rest of the semester to listen to this, right? And that can happen with anybody. That can happen with family, that can happen with acquaintances, other teachers you may have. So a person or a topic. So if you have or have not had an experience with a topic, you know it's just something you don't like country music, for example, you've made up your mind about that, you're less likely to listen. And that is attitude. Experiences. Okay, so if you've had an experience, a first-person, real-life experience with a topic, and somebody starts talking about it in class, you're going to want to listen. You probably also want to listen because you think, hey, maybe I can put in my input because I have direct experience with this. If somebody presents about skateboarding, my eyes light up a little bit because I used to skateboard, and I really enjoy it still, and watching skate videos and all this stuff. So you can probably think of something you enjoy and you can understand and think about that, right? If somebody started talking about one of your interests that's really high on your list, your eyes are going to light up a bit and you will start to listen more attentively than if it's something you have no experience with or something that you've done before. Like for me, it'd be ice skating, and I really don't like ice skating. I'm not good at it at all. So if you start talking about ice skating, I think, I've tried it before, I don't really like it, and I'm less likely to listen. That's experience. And then interest, that's the last barrier. Okay, this influences what you listen to and what you ignore. So you're influenced by your friends, by your family, by social media. And even think about the music you choose to listen to and the music you don't. The music that you're into provides a certain worldview to you, shows you, okay, these artists think about the world in this way, and that can confirm those beliefs and values you have typically, or go against them. But typically you're going to be interested in things that affirm and confirm the way you see the world. Okay, so think about that. That's the last barrier. So your interests can become barriers if you aren't open to bringing in new interests and being open to seeing the world in a different way. All right, now we're going to go, there's 4 more barriers, okay? So those were 5, and they're all kind of connected. Beliefs, values, attitude, experiences, interests. 4 more. And these are more psychological barriers, although those last ones, I guess technically you can categorize them, but those are a bit deeper. So the first barrier of these next 4 I want to talk about is mindlessness. Okay, and you've probably all heard of mindfulness at this point because it's kind of caught on in the last few years, and doing meditation and things like that, and being present. You've heard that, being very present. Some of your teachers have probably talked about that. So mindlessness, when you, and this can come into play, when you view something as unimportant, trivial, routine, or habitual, you experience mindlessness. So if you've ever been driving to class, and once you park your car, you think about you know how you got there because you've taken the route before, but you think, I can't remember any part of my drive. I can't remember what color cars I saw, how many times I switched lanes, anything. You were being mindless. Mindless, yeah. You weren't being mindful, you weren't being present. And that's because driving to school was and is so routine that you don't think about it. Okay, so often we can slip into mindlessness when we think we know a lot about the topic already, so we kind of take our attention away from the speaker. We don't feel like listening, and we aren't being present. We're daydreaming or thinking about something else. So that's mindlessness. Noise. Noise is the second barrier, and we've talked about 2 kinds. What are they? Okay, psychological in here, daydreaming, things like that, thinking about what's next, and actual noise, physical, that's the word I was looking for. Or internal and external, right, is another way to categorize that. So internal noise, psychological noise, and physical or external noise. So if things are going on, if right now you're trying to listen to this video, but your brothers and sisters are screaming at you, or mom or dad, whoever is trying to get you to do something, it's going to be harder to pay attention. Okay, third one, defensiveness. Okay, so we can become very defensive. Again, this kind of goes with beliefs, but you will hear somebody starting a topic. Hey, today I'm here to talk to you about gun control. And you know you don't like that. You have guns at home and you think, oh great, another liberal teenager who thinks they know a bunch about guns when really they don't know anything. So instantly in your mind, what's already happening? You're jumping to that conclusion and you don't want to hear them out. And that's because you're defensive. You're worried that they actually may make a good point and you don't want to change your mind. And that's kind of scary for us, again, because the more we change our mind, the more we have to kind of let go of the idea of the fact that we're in control and that we have everything figured out. We have to loosen that grip that we think we have on life, and we don't like to give up that control. So that's part of being defensive. And then the last one is faking attention. So this is when you're checking your phone or you're daydreaming purposefully. You've checked out, you know you've checked out, and you don't really care. So we don't want to be lazy when it comes to listening. And I understand that can be hard to do, and it can be very, I'm not going to think of the word, forget it. It can be very, like, the idea is attractive maybe sometimes when we think, oh sweet, I can get by and not really pay attention. Like, all I have to do really is sit here for an hour. I don't have to listen. That's faking attention. And that's not going to really get you anywhere because you aren't actually listening. Okay? Okay, so the last piece of listening, we've talked about things that get in the way, but how do you and I, what can we do, what steps can we take to listen effectively? What can you and I do day to day? 4 things. Okay? First thing, be mindful, be present. Put away those distractions, things like that, and also just be really focused on what's in front of you. Part of being present is understanding that realistically right now there's nothing else you could be doing. Right now I'm talking to you all, I'm really talking to a camera and staring at it, but I'm trying not to think about anything else, about the fact that I have to edit this later, about the fact that I have to go cook rice and lentils after this, right? And I can get in that weird headspace where all I'm thinking about is what's next. Being present is all about understanding that right now this is all that can be happening, and to enjoy that. So that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what we can do to be better listeners. Second one, and I touched on this just a second ago, but truly ridding those distractions, okay? So putting the phone away, even when you're watching these videos, and I know that's a huge thing to ask, especially during these times. I know we're all more connected to our phones because we can't go hang out with friends, but for 20, 25 minutes, actually putting the phone on the charger and putting it away, or putting it on silent so we can actually tune in. And I know that's hard. But ridding distractions, that opens us up to being more mindful listeners. Listening anxiety, understanding what listening anxiety is, okay? And you may not have heard of this, but this is, if you have anxiety when you listen, that's because you're afraid that you may misunderstand the speaker and not understand, and that can make you feel less worthy. That can make you feel kind of dumb, which it shouldn't, but we get that anxiety. And there's a cut because the camera turned off on me. So listening anxiety, like I said, you can feel kind of dumb because you're worried and you get anxiety that there's no way you can understand the speaker. So what you'll choose to do is you will purposely stop listening so you can use that as an excuse later on. So I know I have to go listen to a 2-hour lecture on heart disease. I'm worried because I don't have good background in anatomy and all these other subjects that relate to medicine. I don't know really anything about the human heart. So what I'm going to go do is go into the lecture and not listen at all. So later when somebody asks me a question, I have the excuse to say, I don't know, I didn't even listen. And laugh, right? And that's because I'm worried that if I tried to listen, I wouldn't understand. And that in turn would make me feel not very smart, not very good about myself. So that's what listening anxiety is you have that fear that you won't understand a speaker, so you purposely choose not to listen. Rather than listening, writing down things you don't understand and having the confidence to ask questions later. That's what listening anxiety is all about. So a good way to combat that is clear your mind of extremes and understand that you are going to be smart enough to understand these things. It may just take some time. Okay, so a positive attitude can help combat that. The last thing then is to effectively listen, be an effective listener. Fourth thing, don't judge. Now this is something hard that a lot of us can't seem to turn off. So recognizing instantly your emotional responses when you have them. Keeping those in check and purposely push yourself to continue to listen. So somebody comes up in front of the class and says, today I'm here to tell you why abortion should be illegal. And instantly in your mind you go, oh gosh, come on, like, no way, not in 2020, right? That's what you think. And you shut down because you judge the speaker. Instantly you start making assumptions even about them, their background, their religious beliefs, etc., rather than hearing them out. Because again, right, if we judge and shut down, that's easier than forcing ourselves to listen, because I'm telling you, we are worried that we can hear something that we kind of agree with, and then our worldview starts to shift a little bit, and we start to let go of the supposed control we think we have, or the understanding of the world. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is down here in the slides, on the last slide, I believe, there's going to be a YouTube video, and I think it's like 7 minutes long. It's from a show called Hate Thy Neighbor on Vice, and this comedian named Jamali, he goes and visits all these hate groups, and he tries to communicate with them, which often they do want to tell him their message. They're happy to. And he wants to just be a good listener and try and understand them. Not to agree with them necessarily, but to further understand maybe why these groups are acting in this way. So I want you to watch that video and try and not make those emotional judgments instantly. And it's going to be hard for a lot of us to do that, but that's my challenge to you. So go do that. And hopefully you learned something from that. I've learned a lot from that show. So if you're looking for another show to binge or to watch during all this COVID stuff while you're quarantined, Hate Thy Neighbor is a really good one. Alright? The camera keeps cutting me off. I don't like that. Be good. Stay safe. We'll drink out.